What's up, everybody? Thanks for being with us. The final edition of the Slate, leading into, of course, divisional weekend in the NFL. We got a lot to cover. Adam Kaufman, Matt LaMarca, Steve Buchanan, and 4 games. And then maybe, if there's time at the end, we'll dive into a little NBA or whatever else. But most importantly, along the way, if you have any questions, get them in Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, wherever you're watching us. Producer Eamon or technical director, our guy, our man who is just. We're trying to decide how much respect he gets. Undercover boss Tom. I guess that much is due. Let's get into the 4 games, guys. I like the look, Bukes. We got the Bengals, the Titans, the Niners, the Packers, the Rams, the Bucks, and of course the Bills and the Chiefs. We're going to get into all of it as mentioned. Let's go right in order. Boys, how are you first and foremost?
So what's wrong with the look? Like what's your issue?
You were giving me the raised eyebrow. Usually you save that until at least 10 minutes into the show, but you hit me with it early.
I mean, you're dressing up as like Joe from You. Like, I don't know what's going on.
I don't watch You. I watch You. I don't watch You. So
it's too bad. It's a good show.
Well, we were talking a lot of TV. I hope it's all great. LaMarca, it's good to see you always. Most importantly, guys, and LaMarca, we'll let you start since you've not yet spoken. Overarching thoughts on this weekend. What is the number one storyline you're watching for going into the weekend right now?
I guess the biggest storyline would be the health of the San Francisco 49ers, specifically quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm hoping this is a good week, right? The NFL season, not been the most competitive, a lot of primetime blowouts last week. The first round of the playoffs wasn't great. This week should be good. We've got 4 games, all with a spread of 5.5 or less. So I'm hoping for some competitive football. But the big thing is can the 49ers keep up with the Packers, right? That's the big game, I think. The one that's probably got the most question marks. And the health of Jimmy Garoppolo is a big reason why I really like the 49ers this week. If I knew that I was getting a healthy Jimmy Garoppolo, but we don't. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now.
Bukes, how about you?
Jimmy Garoppolo has never played in a game colder than 32 degrees.
Saw that.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
those cold Josh Allen trends worked out great for everybody last week.
Hey. This is Jimmy Garoppolo we're talking about, not Josh Allen, okay? Jimmy Garoppolo with the strained shoulder, torn ligament in his wrist, just an overall sucky quarterback. I mean, what else do I need to say at this point, right? Wind chill's going to be like -19 in that game. I don't know how you really feel good about the Niners. Bosa's being back is big, but like,
can he turn around and hand the ball off?
He can, maybe. I mean, his wrist is about to fall off from what some of the reports say. So I don't know. Can he do it with his left hand? Maybe. But to me, the Packers are one of the better overall teams that are left in the league right now. Like, I think you can kind of poke holes in almost any of these teams right now, but it's like hard to do that, at least for me, for the Packers. So with the 49ers, all the injuries that they're dealing with, most notably, obviously, with Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, I don't know. I feel like the Packers are one of the safer plays on the board on a week where, everything is tight. LaMarca said that, last week was a lot of blowouts. Like, every game on the board right now has a spread no larger than 5.5. We didn't have that last week. We had a couple of games in double digits. Like, This is going to be a much better week this time around.
So let's start with this game, since it sounds like we're both chomping at the bit to go here. I think this Packers team, it has become the most overrated team in football. I'm not saying that they're not good, but I think the perception that they are the clear best team in the NFC is just false. If you look at Pythagorean wins, they were 10.4 and 6.6 this season. Not an elite team in that department. You look at DVOA, they were 9th in overall DVOA. The 49ers, by the way, were 6th. They have a top 7 unit on both offense and defense. The Packers have a pretty leaky defensive unit. So I get it. If you want to back the Packers because they have Aaron Rodgers, I don't blame you for that. Aaron Rodgers is amazing. He's historically been excellent as a home favorite, but I think that this spread is too high. I think it's too high. A lot of my favorite trends that I use during the postseason are pointing towards the 49ers. I think that most betting models are seeing some value with the 49ers at this number. They're getting some sharp activity. They have 68% of the dollars on just 44% of the bets. Like, there are a lot of things pointing towards the 49ers being the correct side.
But let me ask you this, though. What happens to the 49ers if they fall behind 2 scores early? Are they going to be able to come back? Because you're not going to run the ball in that scenario.
They were down 17-0 to the Rams in week 18 in a game that they had to win. They came back and won that.
For sure. I agree with that. But on a normal basis, would you trust Jimmy Garoppolo to come back and win you that game?
Probably not. But you know what? Like, if I'm betting the 49ers, I obviously don't think that's going to happen.
Well, that's why nobody's betting the 49ers.
Plenty of people are. They're getting 68% of the dollars.
That's 68% of the dollars that are going to go to the sports book.
All right. So like we said, obviously the Niners 5.5-point dogs in Green Bay. Of course, the Packers are coming off that bye week. They'll be well rested. They're getting healthier. You have Za'Darius Smith is expected to play, hasn't played since week 1, Pro Bowl pass rusher. So that's obviously advantageous for Green Bay, worth noting. Since you guys were obviously, and I was going to go game by game starting in order, but we got into this one. Let's keep going with this one because obviously the Garoppolo story and just the Packers in general, it's a big one. You were talking, Bukes, about the fact that Garoppolo has never played in a game where it's projected to be as cold as it's in all likelihood going to be. Aaron Rodgers in 32-degree or colder weather is 31-11-1, 74%.
Can I tell you why these trends are stupid? Can I tell you why these trends are stupid? Of course, the quarterback for the California football team hasn't played in a lot of cold weather games. Of course, the quarterback who plays his home games in one of the coldest stadiums in football has a good record in cold games, right? He's the home team. He's favored in all of them. Like, they're all silly to me. These are all silly. Aaron Rodgers, like, do you think there's something special about him that makes him a cold weather quarterback? The guy grew up in California. He's a Cali kid. He's just playing there. I think all weather related trends that are not specifically correlated with wind are stupid.
I think it's noteworthy just because the experience is there for one versus the other who doesn't have it.
What's he going to do? It's not, you think he's just going to go outside? He's going to be like, I don't want to play today, coach. I don't want to play. It's too cold. They're professional athletes.
Some people have called Jimmy Garoppolo soft in the past. So maybe. I don't think that'll be the case. I just think it's one, there's the experience, and two, obviously successful. I mean, considerably successful. So it's not just, he's used to it. He plays his home games in cold weather environments. It's bigger than that. It's that he's successful more often than not in these situations.
Okay, but like I don't think that winning percentage is like an outlier for Aaron Rodgers, right? What did you say his record was in cold games? 31-10. I would bet that he has a 75% win rate in good weather. I don't think it matters. So I'm sorry, Steve. Are we boring you?
No, it's fine. Well, this is a good argument.
So then, Bukes, going back to you, what kind of chances are you giving the Niners in this game? Or do you think this is, we talked about 5.5 points, which is not even a touchdown, obviously. Do you see Green Bay winning this game going away? Is it not even going to be this competitive as to what the sports books are giving us? I've
already bet the Packers to win. Like, I have no problem taking the Packers. And, I'm not a big...
With the points, the money line, both, everything?
I just said I bet them on the money line.
Okay.
To win this game. Okay.
Sure.
I don't have any doubt that the Packers are going to win this game. They're going to win this game. There's too many ways that the Packers can beat this 49ers team. The 49ers fall behind, which is what I'm thinking because I'm betting the Packers. They're not going to be able to come back and win this game. The other thing that's going to boost the Packers too as well is that they might potentially get Jair Alexander back in this game as well. He is by far their best corner. So if the 49ers are falling behind, and even if Alexander is on the field for half of the snaps, I'll take that matchup over any of the 49ers receivers any day. He is an elite talent, Jair Alexander. That was a big loss for the Packers when they lost him back in week 4. And it never really came to fruition that they missed him as much as they did because they've actually had some good guys come off the bench and take his spot. But getting somebody of that caliber back into the mix is big for the 49ers, who need to be, to be ahead of the Packers to win this game, because then they can keep Aaron Rodgers off the field. They can run the ball, which they do extremely well. That's the game plan for the Packers, for the 49ers, to keep the Packers off the field, because they can run the ball and they'll do it well. They have a number of guys in that backfield who can run it well. One of them isn't even a running back by design. So when that is the case, then that's what the 49ers need to do. But if they fall behind, that is where they're going to lose this game.
When we were doing this show yesterday, when I was on with Reed, we were obviously talking about all these games as well, and just different angles, getting into some of the sports book stuff. And
I know Reed the Square Fowler is on the Packers as well. Gotta be, right?
As I recall, he's pro Packers. I mean, I think that's most people are pro Packers.
What did you call him? What did you call him?
Reed the Square Fowler. You don't want to hear your nickname.
I'd love to hear it. Tell me. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, it's empty promises right there. One thing that he was big on, though, as we were, looking at some of these props, like Davante Adams, 94.5. It's a big number, obviously, for a receiving yard prop, as good as we know he is. He was real big on Allen Lazard, especially if MVS is not out there. 40.5. It's climbed a little bit even since yesterday. I think it was, 38.5 yesterday, somewhere in that ballpark. Are there any props that I know that, we don't spend a lot of time talking about props on the Friday show typically, but the fact that the games are tomorrow, not much is going to change between now and at least these couple of games. Anything jump out at you, or is that Davante Adams one, for instance, that, kind of like Cooper Kupp, who's at, I think, 100.5? Are these numbers just too big where they become sort of stay away spots for you?
Who are you asking, me?
Either of you, whoever wants to pipe up.
You're the host.
I got
say
one,
the name.
Steve.
You drive
Sure.
this ship. Go ahead, babe.
George Kittle, over 51.5 receiving yards. Packers 28th in DVOA against the tight end position. Kittle really wasn't involved in the game plan last week. I expect that to be very different in this matchup. If you also wanted to take Elijah Mitchell to score a touchdown, I would be cool with that bet too.
How do you feel good about Kittle? He hasn't been involved in the game plan for a month.
I mean, the guy is one of the best tight ends in the league, facing one of the worst defenses in the league against the tight end position. That's enough for me.
Yeah.
He's projected in the neighborhood of about 15 points this weekend at the $5,300 salary.
I mean, that's a big jump from his single digits 4 weeks in a row.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do the games before that?
I mean, I could say that about anybody. I mean, that's a dumb argument. Like, I
think it's silly to say, oh, he did this last week, so that's what he's going to do now.
No, if it was a 1 week sample, then I wouldn't say it. Look at
six points or less his last four.
Month. I'm not talking about a 1 game sample. I'm talking about a month. 4 games.
That went crazy for a few games.
We know that that when the 49ers have their druthers, they will just pound the rock into oblivion. So that's going to result in games where their passing guys disappear. I think that that's fine. I think we all expect that the 49ers will have to throw the ball a bit this week. I expect more than 3 targets, which he's had that or fewer in 3 of his past 4 games. And I think if you give him targets in this matchup, he will produce for you.
That's fair. I'll tell you one thing, though. His salary has come way down for DFS purposes.
Way down.
5,300. I mean, that's laughable for him if you're going on Matt LaMarca's, idea here. 5,300. I mean, that's a steal.
Love it.
Him.
What about Davante Adams? Just because, again, that 94.5 number, it's a huge number, and it's not like he's incapable. He gets there more often than not. I understand where it's coming from. By the same token, to actually invest money in it, or on it, Bukes, is, I'm looking at the recent workload for him, and he's cleared that number with relative ease over his, basically since week 11. He's only not hit it a couple of times. Targets are generally double digits, upwards of 13, 14, but still, how you feel about it going against the Niners defense here in this one?
I don't have a problem with it. The issue with the Niners secondary is, they've allowed some of the largest yards per target to opposing wide receivers, like 8.1 on the season. That's getting deep down the field against by opposing receivers. So now you have somebody like Davante Adams, who, like you said, has gone over that number numerous times this season. The only thing that I do say is that, I'm on the notion that I don't think this is going to be a close game. So if that's the idea that I have, I'm not going to be taking a wide receiver to be going just under 100 yards, because if that's the game that I'm playing out in my head, then there's going to be more running by the Green Bay Packers in this one. So I wouldn't be inclined to take that. So, it's really necessary when you're looking at these props to kind of have a game idea in your head when taking a look at some of these numbers. Like, last week, Cooper Kupp, his receiving total was like 118.5, I think, at one point, like absolutely absurd. Right. But the spread was close. I don't think we all thought that. I mean, I thought the Rams were going to win. I liked taking them on an alternate line. I didn't think they were going to blow them out like they did. And naturally, because they were blowing them out, Kupp wasn't even close to that number. I think that number was cut in half. He didn't even catch his fifth ball until late in the fourth quarter. So no chance on that one. But that's just how some of these props are. But so for me, I would not be interested in Adams because I like the Packers to win this game by a sizable number. But if you're on the other end, then yeah, that could be something to be looking into, especially because teams have been able to go downfield against this 49ers secondary.
Some of the rushing yards, you got Jones at 52.5, AJ Dillon 40.5. Just some of the notes here. Elijah Mitchell, who you mentioned before, 40.5. But any questions people have, get them in by all means. Obviously, like I said, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, wherever you're finding us. Let's just make sure that we hit on every single game. Let's keep going. The other Saturday game, the first one. So I had asked you guys off the top of the show the number one storyline that you're kind of looking at going into the weekend. We sort of got off on all the Garoppolo discussion. For me, the most interesting thing in terms of what really sways a game is the Derrick Henry story, who obviously has been activated. He hasn't played since Halloween. It's been a long while. No question. He's fresh as hell. He's available. He should be fine in that sense. We don't know. You're always going to get the coach speak, media speak, all that stuff. We don't know what kind of workload we're going to get out of Derrick Henry. And if I'm looking at that Niners game and Garoppolo, like I just, even if Garoppolo, the shoulder isn't bothering him and he's okay, I agree with what Bukes has been saying. I still think the Packers are going to comfortably win this game. For me, looking at this Tennessee game against Cincinnati, it becomes a much larger question in terms of what Derrick Henry are we getting, for one? Is it the Derrick Henry that rushes the ball 30 times? Is it Derrick Henry that rushes the ball 12 times? And I think that is going to determine who actually wins this game. I'm a believer the Bengals are going to win this game. Maybe I'm in the minority on that. Obviously, it's a close spread. It's 3.5 points. Tennessee's favored. I don't think it would shock anybody if Cincy goes out and wins the single Lamarca. But the Derrick Henry factor, to me, completely sways which way this thing goes.
It's a nice thing for the Titans to have Henry back. I'm of the belief that running backs really don't matter all that much. I know that Derrick Henry is a possible exception, but I still think Derrick Henry is worth maybe a point on the point spread. Like running backs, it's just not a big deal, right? The Titans didn't have Derrick Henry. They still won the number one seed. It doesn't matter. The bigger concern is just the Bengals. I think that this is a great spot for the Titans to just roll. I know everybody is in love with Joe Burrow. He's fun. He's young. He plays the game the right way. He does the get the gat celebration in the end zone and it's fun. He's fun. I love Joe Burrow. The rest of that team is not that good. They really struggled with the Raiders last week. They had a goal to go situation where the Raiders could have tied that game and sent it to overtime. I don't think that this Bengals team is nearly as good as the public seems to think that they are. I think that the Titans will have no problem moving the ball and that they will win this game not handily, but they'll cover the 3.5 number. All right, Steve, let me hear the square side of this.
Yeah, we got the eye roll. Go ahead.
I mean, that would be unfortunate because I have Bengals minus 6.5, which you can get at plus 340 on the DraftKings Sportsbook. That is how this game is going to go. Now, Lamarcus sitting here saying that, the rest of the Bengals aren't that good, blah, blah, blah. They're getting a very important piece of their defensive line back. Hendrickson's coming back. That is
He played last week. He just got hurt last week.
But there was the question if he was going to be playing in this game. And
so don't say they're getting him back. They'll have him.
He's available. Does that make you feel better?
Jeez.
It's not like their defense is getting an upgrade. they're getting back.
They're getting an upgrade from what they looked like on Monday. Okay.
Okay.
We'll put it that way. The verbiage was incorrect. I apologize to you. Have another hit.
You're forgiven.
But now they're going after the quarterback that was sacked the second most than any other quarterback in the league. Who was the first? Joe Burrow. But the Titans really don't have a solid pass rush to throw at Joe Burrow. Ryan Tannehill, though, is going to be under pressure in this game. Now they have all their weapons, which is great. It's been a long time since we've seen Brown, Jones, and Henry on the field at the same time. The thing that I keep going back to on the Bengals, Burrow has so many weapons at his disposal going up against a bad secondary. If it's not Chase, it's Tyler Boyd. If it's not Tyler Boyd, it's T. Higgins. If it's not T. Higgins, Uzama just came off a big game last week. Someone who, has been getting a number of targets, but not really gaining the yards, had a nice game for them last week. I just think that there's too many ways the Bengals can beat the Titans. I cannot say the same about the Titans. And, this is kind of turning into the square play now because everybody seems to be on the Bengals, but that's why I'm being anything but a square and taking that alternate line at -6.5. So you can take your, underdog spread and shove it because I'm taking them to win this game by at least 6.5 points plus 340. So take your square play and shove it.
Well, one thing you seem to both kind of agree on is that Derrick Henry is not going to be a huge factor in this game then, Bukes.
Well, I mean, again, for me, if I like the Bengals to win this game, then, Derrick Henry's not going to be catching out of the backfield now, is he? No. And then when, going back to what's his involvement going to be, if they're activating him, he's good to go. Okay. I don't see them babying him by any means or, splitting the carries with Foreman or Hilliard or anything like that. If Derrick Henry is active, Derrick Henry is going to be getting the ball. So I have no doubt in my mind the Titans are going to feed him to start this game because that's what they do. And that's what he does well. But I just think that the way that Burrow is playing, the way this whole team is playing right now, I think this is a really good spot for the Bengals.
79.5 for Derrick Henry. So just to hit on the
you just want us to talk about Derrick Henry.
No. I want to put a bow on Derrick Henry. I want to go full circle on Derrick Henry. I feel like I can't talk about what's his usage going to be without at least acknowledging what the DraftKings Sportsbook has him at, which is 79.5 in terms of his rushing yards. Out of the 11.5 is the receiving yards. Obviously, no surprise that's a low number there. So I don't know. It seems you both feel, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, LaMarca, but Bukes, it seems you feel that you think that if he's good to go, to me, if Derrick Henry is good to go, that means he's going to get the 25, 30 carries, 80 yards should not be even a little bit of a problem for him, regardless of the outcome of the game. LaMarca, what do you think?
I mean, 25 to 30 carries might be
that is not happening because the Bengals are winning. They're going to keep running the ball if they're losing. No.
I have Derrick Henry.
It depends how long, obviously. I mean, if they jump out to a 14-0 lead in the first quarter, sure. But if it's close for the entire first half, like he could run the ball 15, 20 times in the opening half.
I have Derrick Henry projected for about 85 yards right now. I think that's a fair number. That's not a wide enough discrepancy for me to actually bet the over. But I agree with the premise that Derrick Henry is going to be the featured back for the Tennessee Titans.
What about Jamar Chase, 76.5? Obviously receiving yards in his case.
I think that's another fair line. I would take a slight under, I guess. I don't like buying players when their stock is at an all-time high. Feels like that's kind of where Jamar Chase is at this point in time. I think he's a fantastic player. I've been saying all year that this guy deserves to be the rookie of the year. I'm glad that he sort of vindicated that with his performance down the stretch. He's a wonderful player. I think that, his prop has gotten higher by the fact that he's had 300-yard games out of his past 4. So I'm selling. I don't feel good enough to actually put a wager on it, but that's my lean.
You acknowledged it, Bukes. There are a lot of weapons on that Cincy side. It's not obviously just Joe Burrow. So who's the standout? I mean, is it Chase, who's always the obvious one? Is it going to be Mixon? Is it going to be one of those secondary pass catchers? What do you think?
Tyler Boyd has been one of the better receivers for the Bengals as of late. He scored in 4 straight games now. He's seen at least 5 targets in 6 games straight. I mean, he's been really good for them. And then he's got a good matchup in coverage going up against cornerback Elijah Molden, who covers the slot. This is somebody who's allowed the most yards after catch amongst all the Titans corners. 69% reception rate, 11.8 yards per reception. That should be a beatable matchup for Boyd, and that's who Burrow's been turning to if he has been going to Chase. So I like Boyd a lot in this game.
All right, let's keep going. Let's take a look at a different game, and we can always keep bouncing around if we want to as well. But let's get to the Sunday action. And this is it's a fascinating game. The Rams and the Bucks. You know, you got the defending Super Bowl champs against the team that was sort of the popular pick to win the Super Bowl going into the season after the Stafford trade, and then obviously additions during the season, Odell Beckham Jr., Von Miller, and so on. This is a sort of I don't know, the people's champs in a lot of ways going into the year. Where do things stand right now? We know this game, like I said, like the last one, it's basically a pick 'em here with Tampa, the home team, favored by 2.5 points here, Bukes. A lot of people are wondering, can the Bucks get it done? Is it Tom Brady's final game? Does he retire after this? That's all the big picture stuff. How does this game go?
I have been an absolute coward on this game because I think I flip-flopped a million times, which is, par for the course for somebody in my position, because that's what we do. But here's where I keep having issues is how is Brady going to overcome Aaron Donald in his face? Tom Brady has been so well protected all season long. He has been under pressure the least amount amongst all active quarterbacks. Like he's almost never not under pressure. Now he's going to face Aaron Donald. And when Tom Brady is under pressure, that's where you beat him, is getting him under pressure. And now you're talking about, obviously he still has Mike Evans. He still has Rob Gronkowski. He might be getting Leonard Fournette back. But Donald in his face is going to be the make or break for me, really. Because I think that if Brady is unable to get the ball out efficiently, then the Rams could roll against this team that can't defend against the pass at all. They cannot defend against the pass at all. The Bucks don't have a strong...
terrible against the pass last week.
Say again?
They looked terrible against the pass last week.
Oh, please. Okay, that's a whole different story. Okay, I mean, it's hard to not look bad against the pass when Jalen Hurts can't even hit anybody and Rieger is making all these bonehead plays. Either way, now you maybe lose track of what I was going to say. Oh, right. And the Bucks don't have a strong pass rush to throw at Matt Stafford. Now, in that game when they played earlier this season in week 3, they had Stafford under pressure on 27% of his dropbacks. Even in that scenario, Stafford still threw for over 115 yards in that scenario. One of his touchdown passes came when he was under pressure. But they've been protecting Stafford well all season long. That's where it really comes down for me. If all things are even, then the Bucks roll in this game. But that thing with Brady, I think that's where I really kind of am. I'm leaning Rams on this one right now. I hate it. I don't want to be on this side, even though I have Rams to win the Super Bowl as a futures ticket. So very conflicted, but I think that's just going to be a really big factor in this game.
Listen, to use a word from Reed T. Fowler, can you glean anything, LaMarca, from that early season matchup back in October between these two teams, or is so much changed since that it just doesn't even matter?
Yeah, honestly, no. I give that matchup virtually no stock. I just don't understand how the public for the second straight week really just is saying one side has Tom Brady. You know what? I like the other side better.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me. All the guy does is win and cover games. He's done it for the past 2 decades. And I'm not overthinking it. I'm taking the team that has Tom Brady until he's retired. It's that simple for me. I know that the Rams looked good last week, but keep in mind that Kyler Murray just turned in one of the worst quarterback performances in the history of the playoffs. Yeah. If Kyler Murray wasn't such a well-liked player, we would be crucifying him. Could you imagine if Jimmy Garoppolo had that game that Kyler Murray just had? Steve would literally be ready to string him up outside DraftKings.
It's true. It's true.
So
does Brady have enough though? Again, I know Brady's Brady. Like you don't have to sell me on Tom Brady. Obviously,
last week with less.
Does Brady have
Leonard Fournette back this week? Fournette has been awesome. They have Mike Evans. They have Gronk. Who cares? He's won Super Bowls with Troy Brown as his best receiver. You're telling me that Gronk and Mike Evans isn't better than Troy Brown?
Well, of course, but I mean those teams in the early 2000s had elite, I mean, like historically great defenses. That's not the case. I mean, that Tampa was tremendous defensively last year as the season went on. This year's defense has not been the same. And you're dealing with a much more high-powered offense on the other side as well with the Rams.
The Rams offense is fine. I don't know if I'd call them high-powered. They really kind of slowed down as the season progressed. We all were worried about Matt Stafford being injured. He threw 8 interceptions over his final 4 games of the regular season, including a couple of pick sixes. I don't think that just because the Rams beat up on the Cardinals last week, that all of those questions we had about them, all of those ailments are suddenly cured.
Can we feel any which way about Matt Stafford now that he's finally got that playoff win, considering, like you said, the situation in which he got it?
Yeah, congratulations for doing your job.
All right, how about Cooper Kupp here, Lamarca? Sort of the way I was talking about Devontae Adams as well with his big number. This is very bloated, but again, if there are ever two guys that want to do nothing but talk Cooper Kupp week after week on Friday when we've done this show during the season, it's you two. Certainly, deservedly so. This guy has had an historically great season. He's been phenomenal, but 100.5 is the line on the DraftKings Sportsbook for his receiving yards. Can you justify that, Bukes?
Yeah, of course, because, again, they were up so big so early. There was no need to go to Cooper Kupp at really any point in this game. There was never a time where you were like, oh, the Cardinals are coming back. Like, it doesn't happen, especially with Cliff Kingsbury on the sideline. The guy can't do anything after game 7 of any season. Texas Tech, NFL, doesn't matter. Once that's over, it's over the Cardinals. If there's a secondary that Cooper Kupp is going to go over 100 plus receiving yards against, it's this one. Whether he's up against, Winfield, if he's up against Dean or Carlton Dave, doesn't matter. Whoever he's going up against, he's going to beat in coverage. This game is also much closer. This is going to be a much closer game than we saw with the Cardinals. So if that's the case, this is the guy that Stafford goes to, right? So, this is a time where if you got burned last week, I'm one of them. I have no problem going right back to the well and going back to Cooper Kupp's overs, because this is the game where this is going to happen, because no one's expecting a Rams blowout in this one. Okay. Not even me. All right. This is going to be a close game. And if you like how this is going to play out with how the spreads are set, then you should be taking the overs on Cooper Kupp, because you're expecting a pass heavy offense for the Rams. So this is the spot to go back to Cooper Kupp in all facets, DFS, props, all that.
The night game, obviously, the Chiefs and the Bills, that's the 54.5, and we'll get to that game in a minute. But, this game, it's right there along with the others, mid to high 40s, obviously, in terms of that over under. But the way we're talking about this thing, and I know Leonard Fournette coming back could alter things, and it's not just a rusher. He can catch passes out of the backfield and all of that. But, are we expecting a blowout here or a shootout here, Bukes? Is this going to be a high scoring game?
For which game?
This one right here, the Rams and the Bucks.
Yes, I think Matt and I have both touched on that many times.
But are we going to blow the over under out of the water? Like, is 47 or whatever it is, 47, 48? Is that not enough?
No, I always say if there's a game that I want to take the over on, it's most likely this one. Like, the Rams, I think obviously have a better secondary than the Buccaneers, but we're talking about Tom Brady, who just, fits these passes into, windows that aren't even open. So, I have no doubt that Brady's going to be able to do his thing against his team as well. Like, this is not going to be like a 20-20 game. Like, if both teams are approaching 30 points apiece, I would not be surprised. So, yes, I'm taking the over on this game.
Lamarca, is this similarly? Are we going to get a high scoring game? Who's going to stand out in this one, do you think, beyond obviously Cooper Kupp?
I think the easiest, I think this is a same game parlay special for me, because I think it's pretty easy to pick out who is going to be contributing, right? You take the overs on Kupp for the Rams, and then you take Gronk to score and Mike Evans to score for the Buccaneers, and you're well on your way to a little same game parlay action.
Gronk and Evans both right around even money as far as anytime scores in this one. Gronk plus 100, Evans plus 110.
Love it.
Interesting. All right, let's and if anyone has questions, like I said, get them in. We got about 15 more minutes. Let's get to that other game because it is another.
I've been waiting.
Look, it's
I've been waiting. Let's talk about my Buffalo Bills.
Well, it's sort of the same way that Bukes was just talking about that.
Beating the Patriots. You come
in the same way that Bukes was just talking about that last game, though. Like this, that's me with this game, sort of just fence sitting and changing my mind 1,000 times during the week, not knowing which way it's going to go. Shouldn't shock anybody. It's just a 2-point spread. You know, the home team getting the advantage here, favored. And I don't know, guys. I don't know. I mean, if I guess forced to decide, I would go with Kansas City because it feels like that's just the easy, smart thing to do. But LaMarca, I know you're eager. Are you all aboard the Bills train here? You partying with Bills Mafia?
Yes. The only thing I was worried about was that the Bills were going to be like a heavily public side, and it's not the case.
Yeah.
59% of the spread bets are still siding with the Chiefs, but I think that the Bills are the better football team, right? Like you have two explosive offenses, but you have one defense that's good, and that's on the Buffalo side. And I'm willing to take it a step further. If Josh Allen plays the way that he did last week, and I think as much as I have been saying that the Patriots are frauds all season, right? We can agree that they have a pretty good defense. What Josh Allen just did to their defense was the best. That might have been the best football game I've ever seen a single person play.
It was a perfect game.
He is the entire Bills offense, and he does it. He makes it look so easy. I'm ready to call him the best football player, the best quarterback in the National Football League. Statement game, Buffalo wins.
Bukes, you said when I asked you last week going into Wild Card weekend, we were talking about that Bills-Patriots game. You said, these are two bad teams. They're both just playing for the right to lose in the next round. I asked you if a blowout one way or the other would change your view on that. You said no. Now that we've actually seen the reality of it, do you have more respect for the Bills going into this game, or you still think it's Chiefs walking through?
Yeah, I mean, you can't discredit what the Bills were able to do against that Patriots team. And I was not high on the Patriots coming into this game, especially if they fall behind. And what happened? They fell behind and they never could recover. That game was over the second the ball left for the opening kickoff. It was over. That game was never, ever in question.
I'll give them until Micah Hyde made the interception.
Yeah, that's when it turned. 7-7 game would have made that thing look a little different. But whatever. It was a blowout.
Please. It was a blowout. The final score says all you need to know. Okay. That being said, I feel like whoever closes this game as the underdog is the play in this one. And again, it's another bad cop-out answer, but this line's been moving a lot, right? Like we've seen it at 3.5, we've seen it at 1.5. Now it's kind of in the middle at 2. And this is the last game. So I would not be surprised if there's more movement in this game. But I feel like the value is whoever you're getting as the underdog. And as it states right now, it's the Bills at this point, because you would feel good about getting, the plus, the underdog spread on either team, right? Like right now you're getting the Bills as underdogs. From what you saw last week, you're like, okay, yeah, I'll take the Bills as underdogs. If it shifts, I don't know if it's going to shift that much, but if it somehow shifted that the Chiefs end up being underdogs, would you not feel good about getting Patrick Mahomes in a rare spot as an underdog? Of course you would. So is this a good answer? No, this answer blows. But it's the reality. It's the reality of this game. Like no matter what.
It's not a bad way to think about it, Steve. I agree.
I mean, because if you put these two teams together, there's not anybody on this planet that can really realistically say this team is better or this team is better. This is probably the most evenly matched postseason game I think we've seen in a while. So for me, I am sitting this one out until we're getting close to kickoff, and then I'll basically just end up taking whoever the underdog is at that point.
LaMarca, it's a big boy number, 54.5. Are we going to get 25, 27, 30 points aside?
This is another one of these outdoor unders like I've been talking about this, and this trend has really stunk for me. It really killed me last week.
You can't get every trend, man.
You hit the under in every outdoor playoff game. It went 1-3, and the one win was the Bengals Raiders, which was honestly a very undeserved under. That game should have gone over too. So I'm done overthinking it. The Bills score a ton of points. The Chiefs are going to score a ton of points. I'll take the over. I don't feel as good about that as I do about taking the Bills in general, because I do think there's a chance that the Bills defense can keep the Chiefs somewhat in check. But yeah, I'm expecting this to be a really fun football game.
We've got about 10
I have a
minutes
message
left.
to Josh Allen. Message to Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Josh, if you did something special last week, some sort of preparation that may have been different than your normal game prep, do it again. Whatever you did last week, you do it again. I don't care what the weather's like in Kansas City. Let's just say the competition in Kansas City is going to be stiff, and you need to be ready. You need to be ready for whatever's possible, okay?
That's what was great about everybody on Twitter after the fact. He listened to Bart Scott. He listened to him. Maybe. Let's go to the DFS side, because, I mean, boys, there's a big contest in the lobby for people out there watching who don't know. $3 million fantasy football millionaire, $1 million to first place, plus, of course, that coveted Tournament of Champions ticket. You will have, $3 million in prizes. Clearly, entry is $20. We've already got, 59,000 plus entries in there, and a lot more to come in the next 22 hours or so. Clearly it's all 4 games too, which makes it, more interesting than a Saturday only, Sunday only slate. So when it comes to building your lineup, where are you starting, Bukes? I mean, is there a guy or two you feel strongly you have to get in there? Are you thinking about a team or game stack? What's your core approach in terms of building this lineup to begin?
It's funny to start with like a tight end with like building your lineup. So like Dawson Knox at 4,900 is like so laughable. Like, how on earth is this guy only 4,900? Like, you might look at him and be like, oh, it's more contingent on him getting into the red zone, blah, 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 blah. This dude has a red zone target in every single game that he's played this season. If they're in the red zone and they're throwing and it's not going to Stephon Diggs, it's going to Dawson Knox. This guy has been one of the more active tight ends in the red zone who's not named Rob Gronkowski in the league, or not Mark Andrews. Like, it's been Dawson Knox. And then you say like, oh, the Chiefs have been pretty decent against tight ends. You know who else was really good against tight ends? The Patriots. He just annihilated them on 5 catches, 89 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So I'm not worried about the Chiefs being good against opposing tight ends. Dawson Knox at 4,900 is absolutely laughable. He's one of the first guys I'm getting in my lineup this week.
What about you, LaMarca?
So I think stacking, like, everybody wants to play Josh Allen, right? And I think that is smart, #smart. The question is, how can you do it in a way that's not going to be super high owned? So I actually agree with Steve. I have a lot of Dawson Knox at the moment because it's just a way to stack Josh Allen and be a little bit different. There are so many good tight ends on this slate. You can play Gronk at 5,800 or Dawson Knox at 49. Most people are going to click Gronk in that situation. So I like that idea of using that stack. To me, it's a slate where you want to really take the value at running back. I don't think there's not a ton of great pay up options anyway, but Elijah Mitchell just continues to be extremely disrespected by this DraftKings pricing algorithm. 5,800, I think, is super fair for him. Fournette, 57, I think, is a great price tag for him. If you want to go even cheaper, Jerick McKinnon, right? We saw him sort of take over as the a really nice pass catching option for this Chiefs offense. Like, go cheapish at running back and then get up to Cooper Kupp at 8,600, because that's just a joke of a price tag.
And I think,
go ahead.
I think CEH is going to be active in this game. I don't think the performance you saw from McKinnon last week is going to be forgotten about. I would not be surprised if McKinnon is not just maybe even the 1B. I would not be surprised if he ends up handling more touches in this game over CEH, because CEH has been nothing but a disappointment for this team since they drafted him last season. And this is a pretty tough Bills defensive line against the run. But McKinnon, from what we saw last week, I mean, he was just absolutely stellar. I'm even in daily fantasy, they are only separated by about $400. I'm taking my shot that McKinnon still gets the majority of the touches in this game.
I know what the metrics are showing in terms of just projected ownership, and we talk about that from time to time on this show. But asking you guys, if you were going to stack a particular game, are you more inclined to stack that Kansas City Buffalo game, or is it Tampa Bay and LA? Bukes?
I think it's Tampa Bay, LA, because if you look at the ownership, all the ownership is going to be on that late game on Buffalo and Kansas City. And quite frankly, that's most likely where the points are going to come from. But if you're building like a tournament lineup on the off chance that game doesn't end up being, the high scoring game that people are expecting, because don't forget too, like Buffalo's secondary has been pretty good. Kansas City secondary has been pretty good. It's not like we're talking about, two really bad defenses going against each other. A lot of the reason why these teams have played as good as they have is because of how they've also been defensively. So I would take my chances with LA and Tampa Bay, especially when you look at Stafford. Stafford's ownership, and for as cheap as he is, he's like the 5th most expensive quarterback on this slate. I'm rolling there, because if you're pairing him with Cooper Kupp, you're going to have a little bit of differentiation there, because people are going to be going with with Allen or Mahomes. So I like stacking that LA Tampa Bay game, and I think it's going to be not as highly owned as people would expect.
What about you, LaMarca?
I'm stacking Bills Chiefs. I think, again, the question is, how can you do it and not have to really worry about the ownership as much? And I think there are ways to do it, right? Like, you can use an Emmanuel Sanders or a Gabe Davis as part of your Bills stacks. You can use a guy like Byron Pringle, who has quietly become a pretty reliable producer for this Chiefs offense. Use Jerick McKinnon, use Devin Singletary with the pass catchers. Like, there are ways to do it. I think this Bills offense is the team. They're the guys I want the most exposure to. I'll run it back with some Kansas City pieces, but if the Bills have a good day, I'm going to have that game stacked every which way, and I expect that to work out.
So I'll ask each of you, and LaMarca, you can go first. Your favorite play. How about a favorite, popular play maybe, and your favorite value play?
My favorite popular play is going to be Cooper Kupp, 8,600 for him. This is a guy we've seen closer to 10K for most of the season. Don't care that he had a bad game last week. He's going to dominate. My favorite, more contrarian play, I'm going to stick with Emmanuel Sanders here, 4,100. Only 3 targets last week, but he played on 46 of 58 snaps. So you look at, that Bills wide receiver core, Sanders was clearly ahead of Gabe Davis in the pecking order last week. Both guys caught touchdowns, but I think Sanders is the one you can feel better about moving forward.
How about you, Bukes?
Popular play, I probably would go with Jamar Chase if you want to be a little bit different from Cooper Kupp. I mean, you're saving over $1,500 in the process. And obviously, if Joe Burrow is going downfield, he's going to his guy, Jamar Chase, who, has over 100 receiving yards, 3 of his last 4 games. One of those games, by the way, was 266 against the Chiefs. So Chase would be my guy there. For value, I'm not saying this because Reed said this. I'm saying this because I wrote him up in my article. So Reed probably read my article. So thank you, Reed. But Classic. Alan Lazard has been a pretty main point in this offense for the Packers. Even if MVS ends up being active in this game, Lazard has seen at least 5 targets in 4 of his last 5 games. He's got a bunch of touchdowns in that as well. He's getting 10 red zone targets over his last 6 games. I mean, that's a pretty involved person in the red zone. So if you want to try to get a cheap touchdown on this slate, 4,400 for Alan Lazard feels like the play for me.
I really like Tyler Johnson. I'll just throw out another value just for
Who?
I know
what
Tyler Johnson, little value play there for Tampa. He's cheap, like $3,700, something like that. Let me see.
Yep. Yeah, but usually if you like a value play, you want him to actually do something in the game.
Yeah, I
at least be on
that,
the field. I would think is a good thing.
Yeah, I think he's got a good shot of playing this weekend, boys. I really do.
Thanks. And the playoffs are just gonna roll him out there like, oh hey, it's the divisional round.
All right, Eamon's trying to get us off.
I can't wait to text both you when Tyler Johnson has a 50-yard touchdown this weekend. going to be a glorious situation. Thanks to producer Raymond, who wants us to shut the heck up and get out of here. And of course, undercover boss Tom, our technical director. LaMarca Bukes, we're here with you every single Friday, and we thank you for hanging out. Divisional round on the way. 4 games. Should be a lot of fun. Hopefully somebody goes out, wins that million. If you do, tell us about it next week as we get ready, obviously, for the conference championships. All right. See you later.
Leave.